My name is Michelle Wyman. I serve as Executive Director for the National Council for Science and the Environment, and I have the privilege today to introduce our keynote luncheon speaker. For all of you, you have a program and you've probably seen the agenda online. I'm not actually going to iterate the background and the credentials, which are many and impressive, that Valerie Luzatis, our keynote speaker today, brings to the stage. I will share that she has spent many years now at the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry in a number of different roles, as department chair, as professor, as provost and interim provost. I will also share that Valerie is a mother. Valerie is an extraordinary leader and well regarded across the nonprofit community, particularly the nonprofit community that engages in the service of science to society and science to the environment. She has been a part of the National Council for Science and the Environment for over 13 years, and we are very excited at our organization to be welcoming her in this January as our incoming board chair. She also serves on another organization who many of you might be familiar with called Planet Forward, which focuses on teaching students of environmental journalism how to convey the importance of their work through story. And I think we've really seen that happen this morning, certainly on this stage. It's worth noting to all of you that the reason that I stand here in front of you is because Valerie introduced me to Cecilio and Marla. And Valerie was one of the very earliest participants in the first workshop that Marla and Cecilio pulled together in Puerto Rico right after Maria. And it was really her ability to understand the potential for the constellation of people, disciplines, interests, leaders, and hearts that represent RISE so early on that brought us to this place. So with that, I ask you all to join me in welcoming Valerie to the stage.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that wonderful introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. It's really exciting to be here today, right in the middle of this amazing event. And I want to start by expressing gratitude for the beauty of the snow we had this morning. Wasn't it gorgeous? And so one of the themes we've been hearing throughout our time here is about our connection to nature. And I think it's really important that we also express our gratitude for that as we go. So just a bit of thank you for the beauty of the snow to help us move along here. So I did hear that some of our friends from Puerto Rico were really impressed that Vince and his team could actually make the snow show up for us while we're here. So thank you to them. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm honored to be here today to spend a little time with you thinking about transformational collaborations. So today I represent two partners in this event, SUNY ESF, my home institution, and the National Council for Science and Environment, where I serve as the incoming chair of the board of directors. Well, in case you don't know, ESF, the College of Environmental Science and Forestry, is a unique doctoral granting institution within the SUNY system that is entirely focused on science and the environment. It's located immediately adjacent to Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, with whom we partner to enhance the student experience. The National Council for Science and the Environment is a nonprofit organization established in 1990, and it advances the environmental policy and decision-making through science. NCSE's work and programs include interdisciplinary research, scientific assessment, information dissemination, training, and curriculum development, and this is accomplished by engaging scientists, educators, policymakers, business leaders, and officials at all levels of government, and doing so in a politically neutral or nonpartisan way. So today I'd like to begin the rest of my remarks by thanking again President Rodriguez and the team here at UAlbany for hosting this conference. We've seen that not only did we get off to a good start, but they have kept us running and going. So thank you so much to everyone for that. So we've gathered here at RISE 2019 to build something new together. And unlike many or maybe most conferences, this event is designed to link to a specific outcome. And that specific outcome is to actually do something after this conference. And what we've been doing here this time and what we're continuing to do is to develop the foundation on which to stand up a platform specifically to enact more impactful ways of working among universities and communities to establish and maintain resilience, the RISE network. So we've been asking ourselves, what is our role as universities in disaster preparedness, response, and recovery, and specifically to promote and develop community resilience in this climate change era. We've been looking at what models influence our interventions for research, teaching, and service. We've been talking about developing intra and inter-university policies that help us to support students who are disaster refugees. We're talking about how we can ensure justice, fairness, and trust when working with colleagues and communities affected by disaster. What is the framework we need for this, to be able to interact with this extended peer community? What types of governance models align with the demands of resilience and all that we've been talking about? And what are the barriers and opportunities? So these are the questions that have really framed a lot of the conversations that we've been having, both in the plenary sessions and in the panel groups as we've been meeting, and especially in the cohort groups as they continue to meet. So as we engage together, the answers to these questions are emerging. Working with partner institutions within and beyond higher education, taking the progress made in the aftermath of the first RISE workshop in 2018, and using the lessons learned from Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico as a case study, this conference is a launch pad to develop and implement the RISE network. Through these discussions, we're laying the foundation for the creation and operationalization of that network as an inter-university collaborative platform around which these issues of pre- and post-disaster response and community resilience can go forward. The network is specifically designed to provide specific means to connect universities, to scale the pace of knowledge sharing and the application of science in support of community resilience. The platform will also provide the opportunity for us to address the structural and cultural challenges that influence university-community interactions in post-disaster environments in transformational ways. And it will be hosted by the National Council for Science and the Environment. So transformation and convergence are two key ideas that are deeply embedded in the RISE concept. So transformation, we understand, as a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance, according to Oxford. UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, describes social transformation as taking positive steps for social and political action to protect local and national communities against negative consequences of global change. It can be argued that climate change is destabilizing our environment. And adapting to climate change, even as we attempt and strive to mitigate it, requires transformational action as we seek to reestablish and or maintain a stable environment. This means change. We need to change system characteristics, including technological, economic, political, and cultural restructuring. The RISE network is intentionally focused on that transformation, recognizing that at this point, incremental change in the face of environmental and social destabilization is just not enough. We need transformational change. The National Science Foundation defines convergence research as a means of solving vexing research problems, in particular complex problems, focusing on societal needs. It entails integrating knowledge, methods, and expertise from different disciplines and forming novel frameworks to catalyze discovery and innovation. Convergence spans disciplines to embrace transdisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and multidisciplinarity. And this is exactly what we're doing here at this conference, and will continue to do with the RISE Network for Community Resilience following it. We're a group of experts from different disciplines, community leaders and citizens, pursuing common challenges, intermingling knowledge, theories, methods, and data, forming new frameworks and new paradigms to address pressing issues as we face the uncertainties of climate change together. We've learned through many different epistemologies, many different ways of knowing, that everything is connected, and we've heard it here again and again. We also understand that uncertainty is a baseline and continuing condition. Connections and uncertainty. These two threads are central to the RISE Network. Collectively, we're still coming to terms with what that means about how we see the world around us and how we move forward. The concept of convergence, looking across disciplinary and community lines, can help us to better understand and organize ourselves for resilience through relationship. For resilience through relationship. And that relationship is with each other and with the Earth's ecosystems on which we're mutually dependent for life support. We heard last night about a convergence in urgency from David Alexander, and it's through this urgency and through conversion that we can achieve the transformation that we need, weaving the threads of connection and uncertainty with creativity and consciousness. So let's take a minute and explore a little bit of the scientific background on connections and uncertainty. Systems approaches look carefully at the nature of systems and complexities of their interconnectedness. In terms of both negative and positive feedback loops, we readily see and understand negative feedback loops. You know, like when you feel hungry, you grab a sandwich or a piece of fruit and you're no longer hungry after you eat it. That's a negative feedback loop. Well, positive feedback loops are a little bit more challenging to understand. These happen when an increase of one input in a system causes an increase of another, enhancing or amplifying changes in the system. An example of this is fruit ripening. When one piece of fruit ripens, it emits ethylene gas, which stimulates the fruit nearby to ripen. They do the same thing, and pretty soon, the whole fruit bowl, or all the apples on the tree, are ripe, seemingly without any visual stimulus to do so. So positive feedbacks tend to move the system away from its equilibrium state and make it a little more unstable. And this happens at the ecosystem level as well. Global environmental change researchers study and learn from Earth-level systems, both biophysical and social, seeking to understand negative and positive feedbacks. All of this is about connections, one of our key threads for the transformation tapestry we weave as the RISE Network. The study of evolution also contributes, as it's shown us that the emergence of novelty happens. The emergence of novelty is the phenomenon of characteristics or occurrences that are not predictable, and suddenly they appear. Sometimes these changes happen at unprecedented paces during periods of what we call punctuated equilibrium. And this illustrates yet another aspect of our central thread, uncertainty. Physics also provides us with concepts that help us to better understand the world around us. In chaos theory, the butterfly effect, or sensitive dependence on initial conditions, are really important. And have we not heard that over and over and over again in every panel and every session we have had since the beginning of this conference? We have heard time and again that the initial conditions prior to the Maria in Puerto Rico were essentially important for us to be able to understand how we might possibly try to come back from that. And we understand this from our science. This has a profound outcome for us. So we have to admit that forecasting the future can be nearly impossible. The concepts of entanglement and complementarity in quantum physics have taught us new ways to see. Through the study of quantum physics, we've learned that when particles interact, the interaction creates correlations between them that are evident no matter the distance between them. We understand now that no one view of physical reality captures all of its aspects. One must consider many different mutually exclusive views each offering valid but partial insight. This is the heart of complementarity, as Niels Bohr explained it, and as physicists like Shahoni Ghosh further explain it. It serves as a useful metaphor for the ways in which we actively organize ourselves to sustain life and enhance its quality, in part through resilience planning. It's this kind of complementarity that we have as we join together in this room and as we go forward with these concepts through RISE. Quantum theory obliges us to be a little circumspect about assigning physical reality to individual properties. And to avoid contradictions in the science, we must admit two key things. First, that a property that is not measured need not exist. And two, that measurement is an active process that alters the system being measured. So these two seemingly simple statements have profound implications that challenge the status quo of the way in which we have generally understood the world to work and the way we believe it works, the way we believe we see it work. So I'm going to take a moment and read these again. A property that is not measured need not exist. And just the act of measurement alters the system being measured. A long-standing dominant paradigm of science has been the idea that truth exists, even if we don't see it, and that our job as scientists is to uncover or reveal those truths. Well, studies in quantum mechanics refute this deeply embedded prejudice that we have, which is also rooted in our everyday experience. We have learned to see this way, and quantum mechanics is suggesting we need to learn to see differently, that physical systems, regardless of whether or not the properties are measured, may not have those properties. This calls us to find different ways to both understand and address the issues that we encounter. As it relates directly to climate change world we now live in, we can see the possibilities. So as we squarely face uncertainty and unpredictability, how do we proceed? The long-term nature and complexity associated with resilience planning and decision-making require stepping beyond the traditional limits of trend analysis within disciplinary science. That's where most of us are most comfortable. And stepping beyond that is really what we need to do. The ability to accurately predict outcomes is an important focus of much of scientific work, and it serves as an essential input for our resilience efforts. However, we can't limit to just that. When we limit the planning possibilities to just those trends from existing data, we're not adequately accounting for the emergence of novelty, multiple equilibria or punctuated equilibrium, those periods of rapid change. And as complex human beings, as beings, we use many mechanisms to keep ourselves aligned with rules or guidelines that we deem necessary. We do this by enacting and enforcing laws, policies, regulations, and social norms, and by the use of guiding principles and ethics. We set bright lines to indicate boundaries that help us to stay on a track that we deem as valuable. And this is one of the reasons that the RISE Network Foundation we're addressing here at this conference includes a set of guiding principles that we honor and we continue to develop. And this includes humility, inclusiveness, equity and justice, collaborative partnership, inter and transdisciplinarity, extended peer communities, active participation, transparency, accountability, honesty, policy entrepreneurship, openness, and flexibility. We may or may not readily always see convergence, especially due to these embedded prejudices that we come with, as quantum physicists have pointed out to us, as we tend to expect certain things. But we have the same situation with social systems. And RISE is bringing together both biophysical and social systems as we contemplate on how best to collaborate under pressing conditions. We need to be open to reading the energies of systems. We need to be open to reading those energies, to hear, to see, to discern in many ways what these systems have to tell us. We must learn from nature, as President Vélez Arrocho said this morning. And as Faith Hill reminded us today, we must allow the energy of the storms, the energy of the disasters, to transform into imagination and innovation. And our hearts must be borderless. Making more use of wide range of tools and knowledges, embracing different ways of knowing, will provide a fruitful foundation for greater impact, more so than our tendencies to stick with the status quo. Disasters, by their very nature, push us beyond the usual. Stories from such events inevitably include reference upon reference to the convergence of human attention, compassion, kindness, often sacrifice, and the emergence of novelty to some degree, making do with whatever is at hand until help arrives. These events also inevitably turn to the question of why have we not adequately planned, prepared, or attended to the needs for resilience with minimal impacts. The old adage, necessity is the mother of invention, is something we mention in the face of lack of preparation, being caught unaware. But we know now. We cannot claim to be unaware anymore. It's time now for higher education institutions, as knowledge centers, to develop a more impactful ways to collaborate with communities and with each other, and we are called upon to do so much more frequently now due to a changing climate. Well, this is precisely what the RISE network is all about. Forging a new path, allowing for the emergence of novelty and designing interactions through convergence to develop truly new and transformational ways of working together in pre- and post-disaster situations, specifically to significantly establish and maintain resilience. The beauty of this is that we can do it with knowledge that we already have. We can learn firsthand what else is needed in terms of research, scholarship, science-based public policy, and compassion. The RISE network is all about transformation through convergence without the necessity of it happening during disasters. We can and we will create new approaches to more successfully mitigate the negative impacts of climate-related intense weather events. One clear way to see this process of convergence and emergence that we're talking about here is the RISE acronym itself. We've heard about this a number of times since the start of this conference. Well, while the concept initially arose with Marla and Cecilio and partners, there was a set of words that went with those letters as an acronym. There was a definition. But as the development continued, ideas expanded for those words, and everyone had their own idea of what that could mean. So as we came to this gathering, there was not yet an agreed upon definition of the RISE acronym. The resilience concept is at the heart of it, but there are so many different ways to describe the possibilities of the letters that the planning committee left it open. Its meaning may also shift over time, and we heard about that too. As Dr. Ortiz-Garcia mentioned earlier, perhaps RISE is not an acronym at all. Maybe it's a reminder that universities have a moral obligation to support communities to rise from disaster. RISE has meant and means different things to different people, and this provides the opportunity for us to engage in the process of convergence and emergence. With the RISE network, we also want to grow the model of inclusion and respect that was of concern in Puerto Rico following Maria. The idea of RISE was born out of the experiences of Drs. Ortiz-Garcia and Perez-Lugo and INESI, the National Institute of Energy and Island Sustainability that they developed at the University of Puerto Rico. As we've heard, these concerns emerged from their experiences with so many universities wanting to help following Maria. Relationship is essential for these types of interactions, and that did not already exist in many instances following Maria. So modeling that very concept, Cecilia and Marla quickly established partnerships with many universities and who then collaborated to co-develop the RISE idea and come together in 2018 to move this forward, and again here now. So you might think of INESI as the first fruit to ripen, and then the whole bowl now is changing colors. Here at RISE 2019, the cohort gatherings as part of this conference were designed with this in mind. They were designed with this idea of relationship in mind, as a means to develop community and carry these relationships forward to the NCSE RISE network as the next steps of building the concrete programmatic elements that must emerge. We've been asked so many times over especially the last half day, starting at the end of yesterday, I started hearing, all right, we're talking a lot here, but what are we really going to do? Will something really change? And that's the point. Using an adaptive management approach, we're going to build this and assess it as we go, and the National Council for Science and Environment is going to host the RISE network to make it happen and come to fruition. Because the heart of this effort is in action that works, we're really paying attention to being effective with this, while being inclusive, respectful, innovative, and impactful, more so than we've experienced to date. So we do have some measurable impacts expected for this RISE network that we are building together and that will go forth and bring into creation. The RISE network will develop and assess interinstitutional and community university relationships, best practices and agreements and shared protocols for faculty and student mobility after disasters. We will create inter-university and interdisciplinary rapid response teams to provide support. We'll establish regional and multi-sector collaboratories, observatories, and data accelerators to provide a national social mesonet to identify, monitor, and address social, environmental, and infrastructural vulnerabilities to climatic events. It is through commitments from a wide array of universities and organizations to officially join the RISE network that we will be the weavers together, creating the tapestry of stronger communities in the face of uncertainty that comes with climate change. So I really look forward to seeing all that we create together over the next day and a half, and especially beyond. So thank you for your attention today. Thank you. So we're set up for questions following these keynotes, but this keynote was not necessarily one that was designed for a Q&A. Happy to answer your questions, and I could talk about lots of these things all day long, and I'll be around to do that. But I think in honor of the RISE concept, what I'd like to do instead is I'd like to invite you all to, when we finish here, invite you all to get up and go meet someone you haven't met yet. Build a new relationship. We have until 2:15 before the panels come in, and what I'd like to do is say two things. One is that if you would like to know more specifically about Next Actions and joining, please see Michelle Wyman, Cecilia, Marla, myself, any of the team, and we're more than happy to talk about how that goes forward. And as for the rest, let's build relationship, let's build community, and let's go forth and build this network together. So thank you.